Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the new Gems of War Mythic of the Elder Dragon. So, as are all the mythics from the campaign, it has 3 release dates, one of which was last Monday if you got the Extended Pass, one of which is today if you got the Standard Pass, and of course, if you're playing free-to-play, you'll be able to get it in 2 instances into the future, one of which is through the Karkaroth event queue drop table. Keep in mind, it is currently not in the Karkaroth event queue drop table this week. Even though we do have a Karkaroth event, it is not in the drop table for it, so don't try opening for it. But the next Karkaroth event that happens after this Karkaroth event, you will be able to go get it in the event queue drop table. Aside from that, we also would be able to get it through the Soulforge, of course, with 4,000 diamonds whenever it rotates around in about a couple months. So those are the 2 ways for free to play. Anyways, so what does this thing do? It is basically a troop like Elamagrim in that kind of category of troops, where they're a dragon that hits all enemies, creates a bunch of a color gem, and ends up boost ratioing how much it creates of that color based on a stats effect. In the case of this one, it does it based on curse. This is actually the first of this type of troop to be able to have the thing that it applies in a way that is actually good, because there is that yellow one that does it based on bless. However, not only can it not 4 times boost ratio, because it can only do it off of 3 rather than 4, since how it currently works, it cannot actually boost off its own bless. But not only that, it was like a 50% chance to get it 1 per turn, which was pretty inconsistent. One interesting thing about this is it is self-perpetuating in that it creates curse gems, and what does it need to boost ratio? Curse. Curse gems are brown gems that count, basically as soon as you take them, they do a curse to an enemy. There's not really too many ways to do it in the current state of the game. However, this mechanic has existed for a little over a year now. It's just no really viable troop has really had it until now. So this thing can do it to a very, very high degree, and even has its own boost ratio. So in theory, it's pretty good. The only real big downside is that the way that all of the special gems work right now, all the power gems, is even if they correspond to a color of an already existing gem, they will overwrite it. So for example, curse gems are brown, but they will overwrite brown gems that already exist on the board. For this reason, this does make it have a decent amount lower chance of extra turning than you might expect, simply because it will overwrite a lot of brown and potentially almost every single one of the browns, depending on how many you have on the board. Obviously, having more browns on the board still increases your chance of getting an extra turn with it, though not as much as something that actually creates brown compared to this curse gem creation. One other pretty noteworthy thing about this, other than that it has a 4 times curse that is a pseudo-infinite loop into itself, but it also has 2 other unique things. The first is, it is the first troop in the game to get a 1-turn double storm, specifically blue-purple. The only big downside of this is it doesn't necessarily need a blue-purple storm. It mostly wants to see a brown storm, or if they ever make it, a curse gem storm. However, it doesn't necessarily want a blue-purple one, and that is what it has. It's not necessarily a bad storm for it, as other things on your team could potentially end up using the coloration. But if you want to increase its chance of extra turning the most, you would want to go down a brown-oriented storm. Aside from that, it does have a final trait that is rather unique and actually good. So Elamagrim has a attack reduction every single time you end up taking an extra turn. And well, this thing has the same thing, except it is for magic. It eliminates 3 magic from all enemies when matching 4 or more gems. This is actually pretty good in PvP-like situations. In most of the upper ends, like level 500 delves and stuff like that, you're likely not going to be using it, as the amount of magic you're going to be overall reducing, not really that high, compared to what their total is. However, in more PvP-like situations, where the stats are more similar, where you might be dealing with like maybe 50-ish in the current state of the game, being able to reduce by 3 every single time, not that bad. And while none of these teams show it, as it is currently impossible to have more than one, there are potentially double Elder Dragon teams that could be used into the future, as this does stack, so you would get 6 magic reduction every single time you take an extra turn, or you can simply just get more extra turns with a single one. This is a pretty consistent way to end up reducing stats, and there is currently nothing with immune to stat reduction within the game. Do keep in mind, things that are webbed will not have their magic reduced, but aside from that, there's currently no immunity to magic reduction, so you can just keep lowering it down. Unlike things that might have immune to silence or mana drain, they will not have immune to this. Unless they're already webbed, in which case, well, they're webbed, so you don't even need to deal with their magic to begin with. So it ends up working out. But yeah, very strong ability. Overall, decent mythic. Definitely a decent mythic. So let's go and start messing around with a couple teams now. So let's just go over to a kingdom and just start messing around. First thing we're going to do is do it with a bit more of a... actually, which one should we start with? Yeah, we'll start with this one. So we're going to go with the cleanse team. And power cleanse. It is going to be a good idea a lot of times to carry cleanse while it's not required with this troop. The main benefit that you would end up getting from it is, of course, you will be able to go and have yourself a way to get rid of your own curse. This is something that is decently problematic. Also something that is also going to be decently problematic here. He has a green to purple, or a he actually denies out my own color, so I do want to go actually convert that preemptively. Normally we wouldn't want to do it too early, but he does have that empower convert there that we do want to make sure he doesn't end up getting. One slight issue that this troop tends to have is its first cast tends to be a bit worse because it hasn't gotten its boost ratio yet. But once it starts getting its boost ratio, it can kind of just keep going from there. So just going to get a bunch of mana here, ideally get it all the way to max, go get it rolling, and basically just have it go into itself from there. So we should have everything we need in order to go and get things into place. One other slightly annoying thing about it is since it does end up creating brown Kirk's gems, one thing you might notice here is it does not tell you how many brown gems you have. You can easily check this by clicking on anything else on your team that happens to utilize brown. In this case, literally everything on our team. So you can see it that way, but on the trip itself, it does not tell you how many brown gems there are, only specifically brown curse gems. So as you can see, unfortunately, no extra turn there, but we do get a lot of our mana back, and we can just try again for extra turn, and then just try to get the loop going from there. It is under the category of, by the time you get it looping, it's probably worth using something else category, in that it's really, really good once it gets going, but by the time it gets going, you could have already had another team winning. Let's go with one of the more higher mana accumulating ones. So we have an Angry Mob on here. This one actually uses, oddly enough, Darkspith Drenza, which if I'm not mistaken was the first troop or tied first to end up getting the Cursed Gem mechanic. Unfortunately, he's a pretty bad user of it. However, that doesn't necessarily make it ultimately completely useless. It has a very huge boost ratio based on how many Cursed Gems there are on the board. And before, of course, there wasn't really a quick way to get a lot of Cursed Gems on the board. But now, you can do that very, very quickly just by casting this ability a single time. So we just clear out the board. Also, this fixes the issue that we slightly had on the previous battle, in that it took us forever to try to get 4 times Curse onto the opposing team. Well, we can get it a lot quicker by end up utilizing his ability. So we basically just start going down on the AoE and just try getting his mana back. We do want to be getting as many angry mobs as we can. We're actually going to have to go out of our way, I think, for a red here, just so we can kind of get it going a little bit more. We'll have the 4 boost ratio here, so we should be able to get it rolling completely. And we do end up getting it there. Hopefully get another one here. And not full mana, but we can go for the poke. We do have the super high damage poke. Obviously, this could be used to kill out pretty much anything. It actually gets really high, which is one of the reasons I kind of want to show it. As you can see here, we're hitting for, what is that, like 227? Damage right there. So you can easily use this as a big cleanup option for like if they have a resummon or something similar. It also guarantees that you get down that 4 times curse. It doesn't get rid of all the ones you already have on the board. However, you're likely using it at the point where you've already won or almost already won. So it's generally not going to be too big a deal to end up throwing that down. And right here, for example, again, we can throw it for the big boost ratio. We don't have as many right now, though. Actually, yeah, we only have the 2. Does that kill? That would be... yeah, that'd be slightly short. Okay, well, we'll throw that down. He'll have all that I'll ever need. And we just hit for a very big hit and pretty much just clean up there. So overall, just kind of using it for the big damage boost ratio there. Mostly to clean up whatever might be remaining. And here we have a bit of a construct build with it. Of course, Chalcedony ends up creating a bunch of brown. This is the lower rarity team as well, by the way. However, you might want to replace that Stone Slicer for something cheaper if you don't happen to have it. Pretty much any mana accumulating weapon there, or really any blue weapon in general, would work just for the coverage. You mostly just need the Geomancer hero class. The weapon can be anything, though I did figure I do it with a Stone Slicer, though as a cheaper team, Stone Slicer is one of those event-locked weapons, so you'd have to wait until the event week where it is available, which would be during a Droxum event week. So this works pretty much like you would any kind of Chalcedony team. We are mostly looking just to take brown down and kind of going from there. So we end up taking our brown, getting our mana accumulation going, and just kind of go from there. We do have, of course, the magic reduction. This is something that can actually be seen a bit more with this team, as we do have, of course, Chalcedony doing quite a bit of extra turn spam. And while I haven't really been showing it, you can see the magic on the opposing team is just going straight down to basically nothing. And we can end up doing this on a nice clean board. Oh yeah, we didn't have the curse yet. Oh yeah, that is one thing to consider too if you end up picking up random kills. It is under the category of those Element Grim-like troops, and one thing that they actually have a weird slight issue with is they tend to have an issue with the team dying. The other one doesn't, that has the Bless thing, but a lot of the ones that are like Element Grim-like, they boost ratio based on enemies that have some kind of effect. And one slight issue that you can have with, the enemies having an effect is, well, your enemies die. So that will be less things that you can end up getting a boost ratio on as the battle progresses, which can get in the way slightly, depending on what you're trying to do, or if you have, like, a big target that you might have to, like, go out of your way to make sure you kill. But let's go get this pit. As you can see, we were pretty much almost down to 0 magic. You could easily, with any of the more loopy options, try to get it all the way down to 0 if you truly want to. Obviously, in most situations, you wouldn't necessarily end up needing to go that low, but it is an option available. And there's also more stats effect-like teams. I don't think I showed it here, but of course you can end up doing it with like Elementalists or anything else that can kind of get the synergy with utilizing the curse. A lot of times you're mostly just using the curse for its boost ratio, but of course you could do it for any stats effects. So if you really want the enemy team to be 4 times frozen or anything similar to that, you can, or even just 4 times stunning them, you can easily do that in combination with the Elder Dragon there. So overall, how does it offend as a mythic? Definitely the above average category. It's under the utility category, I would say, more so than anything, where you're likely wanting to pick it up just for the sake of having it for its potential 4 times curse into a given team. You can kind of plop it as like a 3rd, 4th slot on something and just kind of have it sit there and do its role when it wants to come out. You can use it entirely for its final trait, which is kind of interesting. Just using it purely for its magic reduction. This would be for probably slightly slower teams, though honestly most of them do seem like it's kind of slow, just because it is a pseudo loop team, so it does get like that little bit of build up it needs beforehand before it really starts to do anything. And it's mostly just going to be used on teams that have a lot of extra turn potential. You could kind of use it for its purple-blue storm. The other thing that has perpetual blue-purple storm isn't necessarily the greatest of options. So if you want one just for like a temporary thing right at the start, you can end up incorporating it to a team like that. But overall, it suffers from many of the issues that pretty much every other dragon has, and I guess even Daemon's at this point. Though Daemon's biggest issue is they just don't have 50% mana start. They get 50% mana start. There'll be a lot of Daemon teams poking up. But dragons, I don't know. They all have like AoE options that just don't work out fully, and this is under that category. It's not a bad option, but there are just better things out there to the point where it'll eventually be obsolete, and will more so be if you're using it for its traits. You're basically just using it for its traits and its potential to 4 times curse if you want to use this as its option, rather than having to use a Mirage Queen or something similar. So if it happens to fit in your team, maybe something that's really brown based, you can end up using it that way. Anyways, guys, if you want to use any of these teams, they are all in the description below. Make sure to get it by the end of the week if you are doing the pass, as you do have these last 7 days to end up completing it out, as this is the final campaign week related to getting the Elder Dragon. Anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, as well as any teams that you might have messed around with it. Would love to hear more of them. It's definitely not a bad troop, just more on the utility side than necessarily something you would build a core team around. Anyways, guys, we'll catch you later. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.